guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Ken, and today we're here to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Volume 3.
The next installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We got a chance to go to the theater to see it.
Yep, finally.
We were a little late in seeing it, but we thought that, the people would still want to know our thoughts even 2 weeks later. Before we get into it, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We talk about movies and TV shows and entertainment, news, and all that good stuff here on this channel.
Yeah.
And
like the video.
Like the video, like she said, and then leave us a comment down below. I'm sure that most people have seen Guardians by now. What did you think of it? Is it your favorite in the Guardians trilogy? A lot of people are saying that. Is it one of your favorite Marvel movies now? Let us know in the comments section below. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's right off the cuff, your thoughts on Guardians 3.
Well, first I want to ask you, do you consider yourself like a Guardians fan?
I do. So I really liked the first movie when I saw it, but I was a little late to the party on that one. I think our daughter was like just born when that movie came out.
Oh, really?
So I didn't go to the theater to see it. Saw it a few months later, and I liked it, but I didn't get like the hype behind it. It wasn't until like I think a couple years later that I really started to see the appeal of it.
Gotcha.
It's a different kind of style with the Guardians. It's a little wackier and. So it took me a little bit to warm up to it, but I really like Guardians 2 a lot when I saw it in the theaters. And I would say I'm a Guardians fan, but I'm not a massive, like these movies are probably, I don't think any of them are in my top 10 MCU,
Gotcha.
If I'm being completely honest. Maybe the first one, but I don't know.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I don't really consider myself a Guardians fan. I don't remember liking the first one when it came out, and apparently I never saw the second one. I thought that I did, but you tell me I didn't. So
I don't think you did. I mean, me and our son saw it in the theaters.
Yeah,
and then
I feel like we watched it at home or something.
I bought it on Blu-ray, but I don't think we watched it at home.
Yeah,
I think we rewatched the first one at home.
Yeah, I just don't remember like being into it. But for whatever reason with this one, there was something about it that just made me want to see it. So I don't really know what was different. But overall, I enjoyed this movie. I thought that it was a lot of fun, and I feel like it had a lot of heart.
Yeah, I'll say this for the Guardians. Like, I appreciate the fact that when you watch a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, like in this universe, everything's so connected that it just feels like you're watching like one big episodic story. But like the Guardians really do feel standalone.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
When you watch them. So this movie, even though like the Guardians were such a huge part of Infinity War and Endgame, in particular Gamora and Nebula, with the whole Thanos storyline. You watch this one and it still feels like within this universe and still feels just connected to the first two movies, even though there's other stuff that's happened to them in other movies. So I appreciate that aspect. And yeah, I really like this movie a lot. I didn't love it. Some people are raving, saying it's their favorite MCU movie, which always seems to happen when a new Marvel movie comes out. I'd say it's my second favorite of the trilogy.
Okay.
But yeah, I really liked it. I didn't love it, but I really liked it. And I thought it was really good.
Something that I like about this movie is the humor. Yeah. And I feel like it just works really well with Guardians. The humor doesn't always work for me in the other Marvel movies, but I feel like they always do a really good job with the comedic aspects of it.
Yeah. With
the Guardian movies. And I mean, there were a lot of moments in this one that I was, genuinely laughing.
Yeah, I mean, you got Dave Bautista. He's good comic relief. He wasn't really in the first one, but in the second one, I think they realized, Bautista can actually do comedy. So they kind of made him more like comedic relief.
Yeah.
Nebula, who I think that Nebula just turned out to be, played by Karen Gillan, just a really good, like well-rounded character. But she can deliver some really good comedy because she does it like so deadpan and serious. Yeah. It just makes it funny. And then, the Mantis, the one with psychic abilities and stuff. They smartly, grouped them all together at a certain point in the movie, so they were kind of just playing and riffing off each other. So that was enjoyable.
Even Star-Lord, Chris Pratt, I feel like he's funny too. Obviously, he's done comedy before, and what was he in, Parks and Rec or?
He was in Parks and Rec. Yeah, this was really like his. I think he did the Lego movie before the first Guardians, but this was like his launching point as like an action star, if you want to call him that.
Yeah.
Because then he did Jurassic World the year after Guardians of the Galaxy. So
yeah.
The only thing I'll say about Chris Pratt, like I liked him in this movie. I do like the character of Star-Lord.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish that, and I understand it's a part of his character, but it feels like for the past like 4 or 5 movies that's had him in it, it's just been about like him being mopey over Gamora.
Yeah.
And it just feels like that's his character at this point. He's just always mopey and sad over not having Gamora in his life anymore.
Well,
so I wish that wasn't his only character trait.
Without spoiling anything, it does kind of like work out and make sense because of what happens at the end.
It does. It's just they played that up like too much in some of the other movies they were in, like, Infinity War and Endgame. It just feels like that's his only character at this point. Mm-hmm. He's just, sad about, losing Gamora. So
yeah.
But we can talk about Rocket. Raccoon for a little bit,
he was
because
a big focal point.
This movie was a big, and we're not going to get into like too spoilery territory here, in case you haven't seen it. But Rocket, like, this is his movie.
Right.
I don't even think that's up for debate. Like, he is the like primary focus
this
and
is like
driving
his
point of the film.
Origin story, right?
It's his origin story. They take you back like throughout the movie. They like, it's not something that it is something that happens at the beginning of the movie, but they just keep flashing back like all throughout the movie.
Right.
To kind of just keep giving you that backstory of him and just keep layering that in. Something happens to him. Again, not going to spoil too much, but something happens to him in the beginning.
Right.
And that kind of carries through the rest of the movie, and you kind of get that backstory throughout. But I thought all that stuff was very well done, and I thought that story was very well told, that when it came time to deliver that emotional like gut punch, and again, not going to spoil anything, but I thought it delivered. And this movie delivered for me, like in emotional ways that I did not expect. I didn't expect to be that emotionally moved by the third Guardians movie.
Right. And again, without like going into any spoilers, I almost feel like this movie had some agenda of like animal rights and stuff.
A little bit,
yeah. It just felt like they were kind of talking about animal lives, and I don't know, just how they're people too, and I don't know, that's just kind of the vibe that I got from it. But
yeah, and I like the comparison that you made about the evolutionary, the high evolutionary. Was that his name? Basically the villain of the movie.
Oh, the villain, yeah.
How he was kind of like Sid from Toy Story, and just like putting all the pieces together from these animals and trying to create the greater species or beings, or the highest level of evolution, of a person or whatever, the animal people, whatever he was trying to create.
I mean, I don't know, like, is that not considered a spoiler?
I wouldn't consider it a spoiler.
Okay, well,
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the villain, like, what did you think of him?
I thought he was a little weak to start, and I was kind of trying to, because I heard that some good things about him. Like, I heard he was a good villain, and I was like, really, this guy? I thought he was a little weak to start, but once you really started to get into him as a character, and some of the things that he was doing, like, throughout the movie was just, like, despicable, that by the time we got to the end, like, I really wanted to see him get his comeuppance for sure.
Right, yeah. Like, in the beginning, I feel like they didn't quite paint him so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit, but not like terrible. And then, like you said, as it progressed, you kind of saw like his true motives and like the kind of insanity of him, that he would just so easily,
Yeah, I mean, like, once you like figure him out, like cut to the core of him, like, he's one of the most like evil,
heartless
Marvel villains that I feel like we've ever had.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought again, a little weak to start, but once you started to peel back those layers, I thought a lot of stuff made sense with him, and I thought he was pretty great. Definitely the best villain in the Guardians, because the villains haven't been the best in the Guardians.
Yeah. What did you think about the music?
So yeah, I mean, the big part of the Guardians of the Galaxy is the soundtrack. I think that they're 3 for 3 with another great soundtrack. I thought all the music and the song choices were excellent. Like, James Gunn, And I don't know like who if he's like solely responsible. I know we had this talk. I don't know if he's solely responsible for the music choices, but I have to think that he has a say in it.
Right.
But he picks songs that are some of them are popular and you know them, but they're not the most popular songs.
Yeah.
I feel like he's good at like picking out some deep cuts here and there to kind of
Right.
keep things moving along and keep it from feeling like a greatest hits album or something.
I mean, I feel like music, has always played a big part in this movie just because, Star-Lord, he has the little cassette tape and
Yeah.
he's always listening to music. And so that was still incorporated in this one. And I enjoyed that. And I feel like it's just like a part of his character. Always, like you said in this one, kind of moping around, listening to like love songs or, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I personally enjoyed that.
Yeah, and that whole big like there's one like really great action set piece
Oh, yeah.
in this movie, and they utilize Beastie Boys' "No Sleep Till Brooklyn," and I've always loved that song.
Yeah.
So when that started, I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I was really into that whole sequence because of that song.
Yeah, there were a lot of really good, action scenes in this movie. I will say, this movie was like 2 hours and 30 minutes, and I definitely feel like they could have shaved some time off of it.
They could have. There's a point in the movie where it's like you feel like it's almost over, and then it's almost like it restarts into another finale. I think the
Yeah.
last hour was needed, but like there's some stuff they could have shaved off, like
I
in the
don't know.
beginning. I feel like, but I really don't know what you would have cut. It just but it did feel its length a little bit. I'll say that.
It did for me. I don't know if it's just because, this is supposed to be the last one, and so they just kind of
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that they, covered every little thing or whatever.
Yeah. So we can talk about James Gunn a little bit. So he directed the first two Guardians movies. He was then fired from Marvel and Disney.
Yeah.
Famously over some tweets that he did like 10 years previous. And then he went to work for DC and created the Suicide Squad movie.
Right.
But then Disney wanted him back. So he came back to finish what was always supposed to be a trilogy. So I know that this movie was extremely personal to him and meant a lot to him. So I think that he just wanted to give this a good finale. And now this is his last Marvel movie. He's going to head up DC and create that whole universe now over there. So
Oh, right. Yeah.
this is
So-
kind of like his swan song for the characters that he, brought to popularity because nobody knew who these characters were,
Right.
before his movies.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like a conclusion, I feel like it was a good conclusion. It was a little sad at the end, without going into any spoilers. I don't know if they like completely went there. They definitely could have made it sadder.
Yeah,
if
it
they
was
wanted.
also sad in ways that you didn't necessarily anticipate.
Right.
Like you were saying, there's clear ways that they could have made it sadder, but they didn't go that approach. They went with another approach. And I feel like it worked pretty good. And it leaves it open for, maybe a spin-off to Guardians.
Well, yeah, I mean
You
the end credit scenes. There's two, credit scenes, and the last one kind of confused me. So
Yeah,
I mean,
we'll see what happens. I do want to talk about, you got, I think his name's Will Poulter as Adam Warlock in this movie. And I didn't think he would, the gold guy.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a lot of buildup over this particular character.
Yeah, I would
and
agree with that.
I thought if you're a fan of this character, I don't see how you were satisfied by this.
Right, me either.
He was very silly, and I don't really think he necessarily worked he didn't really fit in to everything else that was going on in the movie to me.
Yeah.
Like he started a lot of things, like he was involved in the plot, but I just didn't think that character fit in the movie. It just felt like they wanted to have him in here, and the things that he did, like other people could have done.
Yeah, but again, when we get to the end of the movie, like his something
character's
becomes of it.
His character is important, and could be important in later movies, but I just didn't feel he was necessary
Gotcha.
to drive the plot. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I guess we can get into our final thoughts if you don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, no.
About the movie. As a movie, as a score, I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my favorite Marvel movie of all time, but I would give it a 4 out of 5. It's a solid movie.
Yeah, I would
It's a
give
solid
it.
Marvel movie.
I would give it a 4 out of 5 as well.
Yeah, I think it's definitely. I think that Marvel's had 2 really good movies since Endgame. I think that this one and Spider-Man No Way Home is probably their two.
This was
Two best
definitely
ones.
better than Thor. Love and Thunder.
Definitely better than Thor. definitely better than Ant-Man. So,
Yeah,
glad to see them have another hit on their hands in a movie that people can receive mostly well, I think. But yeah, thank y'all for watching this review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. If you can, like this video. Also subscribe to the channel, and then comment down below whatever you want to comment on the movie if you've seen it. And then, turn on the bell notifications. Follow us on our social media accounts down below, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.